I did not know I was dead. That sounds impossible, does not it? Most people imagine death as a dramatic moment, a final breath, a flash of light, a clear ending. For me, it was none of those things. One moment I was standing in a courtroom, the next I was somewhere else entirely. And the strangest part, I did not realize anything had happened. My name is Evelyn Carter. I was 68 years old when my heart stopped. For more than 40 years, I had worked as a lawyer. People knew me as a woman who never lost control. I built my career on facts, evidence, and logic. If someone had told me a year earlier that I would one day be telling a story about what happened after death, I would have smiled politely and changed the subject. Not because I was cruel, because I simply did not believe in such things. Life was life, death was death, and that was the end of it. At least that was what I thought. The day it happened began like any other Tuesday. Rain tapped softly against my office window. The city looked gray and tired. I remember arriving early, carrying a cup of coffee that had already gone cold. The office was quiet. Most of my staff had not arrived yet. I sat behind my desk, reviewing documents for a case that had occupied my mind for months. It involved a bitter family dispute, millions of dollars, years of resentment, brothers and sisters who had forgotten how to love each other. Cases like that were common. Sometimes I felt I spent more time studying human pain than human law. Around noon, I felt tired, not unusually tired, just exhausted in a way that had slowly become normal. I blamed age, I blamed stress, I blamed work. I never considered my heart. At 2 o'clock, I left for court. The rain had stopped, the air smelled clean. I remember noticing a young mother helping her little boy cross the street. The child was laughing. His yellow raincoat seemed brighter than everything around him. For some reason, that image stayed with me, even now. The hearing lasted less than an hour. I stood before the judge presenting my argument. My voice was steady. My thoughts were clear. Then something strange happened. A sudden pressure spread across my chest. Not pain, pressure, as if someone had placed a heavy stone inside me. I paused. The room seemed distant. Voices sounded muffled. I remember gripping the edge of the table. Someone asked if I was all right. I tried to answer, but the words never came. The courtroom tilted, the ceiling blurred, and everything disappeared. No explosion, no terror, no dramatic farewell, just silence, complete silence. When awareness returned, I found myself standing in a long hallway. At least I thought it was a hallway. The space stretched endlessly in both directions. There were no walls, no ceiling, no visible floor. Yet somehow I stood there. The darkness surrounding me was not ordinary darkness. It felt alive, not threatening, not comforting, just present. I looked down at my hands. They appeared normal, solid, real. I touched my face. Everything felt exactly as it always had. I was confused. I remember thinking perhaps I had fainted. Perhaps this was a dream. Perhaps I was unconscious in a hospital. My mind searched desperately for explanations. That is what lawyers do. We look for answers, we build arguments, we find logic. But nothing around me followed logic. The silence was unlike anything I had ever experienced. There was no wind, no echo, no distant sound, not even the sound of my own breathing. I began walking, or at least I believed I was walking. The strange hallway never changed. No matter how far I moved, no matter how long I continued, the darkness remained exactly the same. Minutes passed, or hours. Time felt broken. I thought about my office, my clients, my unfinished work. Then, unexpectedly, memories began appearing around me. Not like pictures, not like movies, more like living moments floating in the darkness. I saw myself as a young woman entering law school, nervous, determined, afraid of failure. I saw my father standing beside an old pickup truck. He was smiling. He had been dead for 20 years, yet there he was, not speaking, not moving, simply existing inside the memory. Then another memory appeared. My first courtroom victory, the excitement, the pride, the feeling that my future was limitless. More memories followed, hundreds of them. Tiny moments I had forgotten decades ago. A summer afternoon, a family dinner, A rainy evening, a birthday, a goodbye. Some memories were beautiful, others hurt, especially the ones involving people I had neglected while chasing success. Faces appeared, friends I stopped calling, relationships I allowed to fade, promises I never kept. The strange thing was this: nobody judged me, nobody accused me. Yet I felt every decision more deeply than ever before. Not guilt, not exactly. Something more complicated, understanding. For the first time, I saw my life without excuses, without legal arguments, without justifications, only truth. And that frightened me. Then something changed. The darkness ahead seemed to move. A distant shape appeared far away, impossible to identify. At first, I thought it was another memory, but it was different. This was not part of my past. This was something else, something waiting. I stopped walking. The shape remained, motionless, watching, or perhaps simply existing. I could not tell. A strange feeling spread through me, not fear, not safety, both at the same time. And then for the first time since arriving in that endless darkness, I heard a sound, a single voice. Quiet, distant, almost impossible to understand. It spoke only 3 words. Evelyn, not yet. The moment those words reached me, the darkness began to collapse. The hallway shattered, the memories vanished, and suddenly I felt myself falling, faster and faster, towards something I could not see, towards something I could not stop. And that was when I finally saw what had happened to me. The fall lasted only a second, or maybe 1,000 years. I still cannot explain it. One moment I was rushing through darkness. The next, I was hovering above a courtroom. My courtroom. At first, I did not recognize it. Everything looked strangely distant, like I was seeing it through thick glass. Then I saw the crowd. People were standing, some were shouting, someone had called emergency services. And there, lying on the floor beside the counsel table, was a woman with gray hair, a dark blue suit. One shoe had slipped halfway off her foot. I stared, confused. Then I recognized the suit. It was mine. The woman on the floor was me. For a moment, my mind refused to accept it. I had spent my entire life examining facts, evidence, reality, yet the reality before me felt impossible. I watched paramedics rush into the room. One dropped to his knees. Another opened a medical bag. Someone began chest compressions. The judge stood frozen. Several people were crying. I remember feeling detached, not cold, not emotional, just detached, like I was watching a case involving a stranger. Then one of the paramedics shouted something. I could not hear the words clearly, but I understood the urgency. They were fighting to save me and losing. The realization hit me slowly. I was dead, or close enough that the difference no longer mattered. Oddly, panic never came. I expected fear. I expected terror. Instead, I felt an overwhelming sense of stillness. The arguments inside my head simply stopped. For the first time since childhood, I had nothing to prove. No deadlines, no clients, no court dates, no expectations, just silence. Then the scene below began fading. The courtroom dissolved like mist. The people disappeared. The paramedics vanished, and once again I found myself surrounded by darkness. But this darkness was different. It no longer felt empty. Something was changing. Far ahead, faint lights appeared. Tiny points at first, like stars. As I watched, more lights emerged. Hundreds, thousands. They floated within the darkness, creating vast patterns I could not understand. The sight was beautiful. Not beautiful in a human way, not like a sunset or a painting. Something deeper, something ancient. For a while, I simply watched. Then I noticed something strange. Each light seemed connected to a memory. When I focused on one, an experience surfaced. My first day at school, a conversation with my mother, the smell of coffee in my father's workshop, a rainy evening with a friend I had not spoken to in 30 years. Every light carried meaning, every light carried emotion, and every memory felt alive, not remembered, relived. I experienced them from every perspective, not only my own. I felt what others had felt, the people around me, the people affected by my choices, the people I helped, the people I hurt. That was the hardest part. As lawyers, we become skilled at defending ourselves. We explain our actions, we justify our decisions, we create reasons. But here there were no reasons, only consequences. I saw a young employee I once dismissed harshly. At the time, I believed I was teaching discipline. Now I felt her humiliation. I felt her tears during the drive home. I felt her loss of confidence. Not because someone punished me, because I experienced the truth. Then came another memory, years earlier. My younger sister calling me repeatedly while I prepared for a major trial. I ignored her calls, again and again. She died 2 weeks later, a sudden stroke. I had always told myself I was busy, that I could not have known that life happens. Standing within that strange place, I felt her loneliness, not anger, not resentment, loneliness. The weight of that realization nearly broke me. I wanted to apologize. I wanted another chance. But the memory moved on. More lights, more moments, good and bad. I witnessed acts of kindness I had completely forgotten, helping a struggling student, paying a stranger's rent anonymously, comforting a grieving client. Tiny moments I considered insignificant, yet they shined brighter than some of my greatest professional achievements. That surprised me. The victories I had spent decades chasing seemed strangely small. The moments of compassion seemed enormous, as though they mattered more than I ever understood. Then everything changed again. The lights began drifting apart, the darkness deepened. A cold sensation spread around me, not physical cold, something emotional, ancient, heavy. I felt as though I had entered a place untouched by time. The lights disappeared one by one. Soon only darkness remained, and then I heard footsteps, slow, measured, approaching from somewhere ahead. I could not see anyone, only hear them. Step, step, step. The sound echoed through the void. I wanted to move. I could not. I wanted to speak. No words came. The footsteps stopped. Silence returned. Then, from within the darkness, a figure emerged. At first, it appeared only as a shadow. No face, no details, just a human shape. The figure stood several feet away, watching me, or perhaps looking through me, I cannot say. Fear finally appeared, not overwhelming fear, a quiet fear, the kind you feel standing before something far greater than yourself. We remained motionless. Neither of us spoke. Seconds passed, or centuries. Time no longer behaved normally. Then something extraordinary happened. The shadow began changing. Its outline shifted, its posture changed, its height altered, and slowly, impossibly, the figure became someone familiar. Myself, not the elderly woman I had been, a younger version, perhaps 30 years old, strong, confident, ambitious, the woman I once was. I stared in disbelief. She stared back. Neither of us moved. Finally, she spoke. Her voice sounded exactly like mine. What happened to us? The question pierced me because I did not know the answer, not truly. The younger version of me stepped closer. Her eyes searched mine, and suddenly I understood something terrifying. She was not asking about death. She was asking about life. What happened to us? What happened to our dreams, our relationships, our joy, our purpose? What happened to the person we once hoped to become? I had spent decades building a successful career, yet standing before my younger self, I felt strangely empty, as if some part of me had been left behind long ago. The younger Evelyn studied me quietly, then she smiled, not sadly, not happily, almost knowingly, and she said something I will never forget. "You won every case," she paused, "but did you win your life?" The darkness trembled, the shadow dissolved, the lights vanished, and suddenly a powerful force grabbed hold of me. Something was pulling me away, fast, violently, toward a destination I could not see, toward a truth I was not yet prepared to face. And somewhere in the distance, beyond the darkness, I heard voices, doctors, machines, people shouting, growing louder with every passing second. The voices grew louder. At first they sounded distant, like echoes coming through a thick wall. Then they became clearer, urgent, chaotic, desperate. Someone was shouting instructions. A machine beeped repeatedly. Another voice counted numbers. For a moment, I thought I was returning. I thought the experience was ending, but I was wrong. The force pulling me suddenly stopped. Everything became still again. The voices vanished, and I found myself standing somewhere entirely different. The darkness was gone. The endless hallway was gone. The floating lights were gone. I stood on a narrow country road beneath a gray sky. A cold breeze touched my face. Leaves drifted across the ground. The air smelled familiar, painfully familiar. I looked around. An old wooden fence. A mailbox leaning slightly to one side. Tall trees swaying in the wind. Then I saw the house, my childhood home. My heart nearly stopped, or whatever remained of it. The house looked exactly as it had when I was 12 years old. Not a detail was missing. The chipped paint, the porch swing, the cracked window near the kitchen, everything. I slowly walked forward. My shoes made no sound. The world felt real and unreal at the same time. I reached the front porch. The old swing moved gently, back and forth, though there was no wind strong enough to move it. I stepped inside. The moment I crossed the doorway, memories flooded through me. The smell of my mother's cooking, the sound of my father's laughter, the feeling of safety I had not experienced in decades. Every room held pieces of my life, not memories, pieces, as though parts of me had been left behind here. In the living room sat a small wooden table. On top of it rested a red notebook. I recognized it immediately. My childhood journal. I had not seen it in over 50 years. With trembling hands, I opened it. Inside were pages filled with dreams, simple dreams, honest dreams. One page caught my attention. The handwriting was uneven and childish. I read the words slowly. When I grow up, I want to help people and never be too busy for the people I love. I stared at the sentence again and again. The words felt heavier than any legal document I had ever held, because they were written before ambition, before success, before excuses. They came from a version of me that still understood what mattered. A tear rolled down my cheek, the first tear since this journey began. I closed the notebook. The house suddenly grew silent. Then I noticed someone standing in the kitchen doorway, an older woman, soft eyes, gentle smile. For a second, I could not breathe. My mother. She had died 34 years earlier. Yet there she stood, exactly as I remembered her, healthy, warm, alive. I wanted to run toward her. I wanted to hug her, to ask 1,000 questions, but my legs would not move. She simply smiled. The same smile she always gave me when I was frightened. Neither of us spoke. Oddly, words seemed unnecessary. An understanding passed between us, the kind that exists beyond language. I felt her love, not remembered love. Present love, surrounding me completely. Then something even stranger happened. I felt what she had felt throughout my life. Every proud moment, every worry, every prayer she whispered for me. Every night she stayed awake, concerned about my future. I felt it all, and suddenly I realized something. Love does not disappear, not with distance, not with death, not with time. The realization overwhelmed me. I began crying openly. Years of buried emotions surfaced at once. Regrets, grief, missed opportunities, lost time. My mother stepped forward. Still without speaking, she gently touched my shoulder. The moment she did, the entire world changed. The house dissolved, the road disappeared, the sky vanished. Everything became light, not blinding light, warm light, comforting light. For the first time since my heart stopped, fear completely disappeared. I felt peace, a peace deeper than happiness, deeper than relief, the kind of peace that feels older than the world itself. Then images appeared around me, not memories this time, possibilities, paths, moments that never happened, conversations I could have had, visits I could have made, people I could have forgiven, opportunities to love more deeply. I realized life is not measured only by what we do. It is also shaped by what we fail to do, not as punishment, simply as truth. The light continued expanding. I sensed something beyond it, something immense, something impossible to describe. I wanted to move closer. Every part of me wanted to continue. Yet somewhere far away, another sound emerged. A voice, sharp, urgent, human. "Charge again!" Then another voice. "We've got a rhythm." The light trembled. My mother's smile faded slightly, not with sadness, with understanding, as though she already knew what was happening. I suddenly realized something. I was being pulled away, back, toward the world I had left behind. "No," I whispered. For the first time during the entire experience, the word escaped my lips before I could stop it. I did not want to leave. Not yet. Not after finding this peace. Not after finding her. My mother looked at me one final time. Then she finally spoke. Only 4 words. Words I still hear every day. "Your work isn't finished." The light exploded around me. The world shattered, and I felt myself falling once again. Faster than before, harder than before, toward voices, toward pain, toward life, toward a reality I was no longer certain I understood. And as I plunged through the collapsing light, one terrifying thought entered my mind. If I was being sent back, then there was still something waiting for me on the other side. Something unfinished, something I had spent my entire life avoiding. Pain. That was the first thing I felt. A sharp, crushing pain deep inside my chest. After everything I had just experienced, the sensation was almost shocking. One moment there had been peace beyond words, the next, agony. My eyes opened. Bright hospital lights hung above me. Blurred faces surrounded the bed. Machines beeped. Someone shouted. Another person called my name. "Evelyn, stay with us!" Air rushed into my lungs. I gasped violently. We met for coffee. I asked questions carefully, without mentioning my experience, without discussing death, without discussing anything supernatural. I simply asked him to describe what happened. As he spoke, a chill spread through my body. Every detail matched. The position of the people, the words exchanged, the sequence of events, even a joke one paramedic had made while trying to ease the tension. A joke I had heard while supposedly unconscious, possibly dead. The man looked confused when I finished. "How do you know all that?" he asked. I had no answer, because the truth sounded impossible, so I smiled and changed the subject. Yet inside, something fundamental had shifted. For decades, I believed reality was limited to what could be measured. Now I was no longer certain, not because I suddenly had all the answers. I did not. In truth, I returned with more questions than ever, but I also returned with something else: perspective. The months after my recovery changed my life completely, not overnight. Real change rarely happens overnight, but gradually, steadily, like sunlight entering a dark room. I reduced my workload. I stopped chasing victories that no longer mattered. I called people I had neglected. Some conversations were awkward, some were emotional, some ended in tears, others ended in forgiveness. A few relationships could not be repaired, but I tried. For the first time in years, I truly tried. I visited my sister's grave. I sat there for hours, talking aloud like a foolish old woman, apologizing, laughing, remembering. The wind moved through the trees, and for the first time since her death, I felt peace, not because the regret disappeared, because I finally faced it. I also began volunteering, quietly, without publicity, without recognition. The younger version of myself, the woman I met in that strange darkness, had asked a painful question. You won every case, but did you win your life? For months, I carried that question everywhere. At first, it haunted me, then it guided me, because the answer was uncomfortable. I had built an impressive career. I had earned respect, money, status, awards. Yet many of the moments that mattered most were not found in any courtroom. They were found in ordinary human connections. A phone call, a visit, a conversation, a kindness, the very things I often postponed, assuming there would always be more time. But time is the one thing none of us truly possess. We only borrow it, and eventually every loan comes due. 5 years have passed since the day my heart stopped. I am 73 now, retired, living in a small house near a lake, Most mornings begin quietly: coffee, birdsong, sunrise over the water, simple things I once ignored. Sometimes people ask whether I fear death. The answer surprises them. No, not in the way I once did. I still respect it. I still recognize its mystery. But fear, no. Because something happened during those 4 minutes, something I cannot fully explain. I learned that death may not be the opposite of life. It may simply be another chapter we do not yet understand. And sometimes, late at night, I sit alone on my porch. The world's silent around me, the stars reflected on the lake. I think about my mother, about the light, about those final words. Your work isn't finished. For years I assumed she meant legal work, helping people, repairing relationships, making better choices. Perhaps she did, but recently I have begun wondering if she meant something else. Maybe all of us arrive here with unfinished work, not careers, not achievements, something deeper. Learning how to love, learning how to forgive, learning how to become fully human. Maybe that is the real work. Maybe that is why we are here. And maybe when our final moment arrives, we do not carry our titles with us, not our money, not our victories, not our failures, only the truth of who we became. I cannot prove any of this. A lawyer should admit that evidence matters, facts matter, but so does experience. And this was mine. 4 minutes, that is what the doctors recorded. 4 minutes without a heartbeat, 4 minutes that changed everything. Perhaps one day science will explain every detail, perhaps it will not. Either way, I know what I saw, I know what I felt, and I know this: the last thing I expected to find after death was a reason to truly start living.